Games, a staple genre within gaming history, brandishing a total of 6 games under the title. And yes, I do think Sekiro counts as a Souls game, but we ain't gonna get into that debate for today's video. And of course, after the success of many Souls games, then came the Souls likes, which prime example were Longthorn Dynasty and Lies of P, which basically just built on the structure of Souls games, but they're not inherently, from software, so they're classed as like Souls likes. So I wondered to myself, who truly is the strongest final boss of them all? And I decided to pick the final boss genre because usually final bosses are meant to be strong. Now, of course, this is my opinion. Of course, I'm going to provide evidence, of course, but you can kind of like put them wherever you want. But this is my definitive answer to where they'd actually rank. Now, before we actually begin the ranking, I'm going to need to make like 2 things clear. First, we will not be counting any DLC final bosses, since they're just a whole nother fucking another topic. And we will not be also talking about Demon Souls, since I just can't get through that game at all, and I have like no knowledge about it. I haven't played Sekiro at all, however I do have actual knowledge on it, but Demon Souls is just something I just can't get into, so we're not going to be including False King or Land and all that shit. It's just going to be the mainline Souls games, Bloodborne and Sekiro. Now, before we begin, actually, I need to make this clear. This video was meant to basically be made ages ago. However, the issue was my fucking throat was absolutely fucked from the cold, which probably explains why I sound like this right now, and I can't really speak too much, so I'm going to try and make this quick so I don't worsen my voice anymore. Now, as always, please don't forget to subscribe, click the like button, and our last video actually did really amazing, so we're actually approaching 500 really closely. I think it's like 13 subscribers away. If we hit it by the end of this month, I will be very glad. We might actually hit it before the end of this month, but anyway, let's get into the video. So rounding off the list at the bottom, and this hurts my heart because at number 6 we have Isshin Ashina. I think I pronounced that name right. Now, like I said, I love Sekiro. The boss fights are cool. I've actually experienced them myself, but I do love the boss fights from what I've seen, and I do love the lore. Now, I truly adore this guy. He's a pretty cool boss. However, in terms of feats and his speed, he isn't really that fast or strong. He ranges into like town level to city level max due to the fact of him controlling the environment, drawing in storms in his final fight, which is good and all. However, it just doesn't compare to the other bosses, which can literally be compared to, well, gods. So I'm not saying Isshin Ashina is a regular guy, because this guy is definitely not regular. However, he just doesn't compare to the others on this list. Now, for his speed, he's okay, I guess, ranging to massively hypersonic, via being comparable to Wolf, who could react to lightning, which is decent, like I said. However, it just doesn't compare to what other final bosses offer. That's why he ranks pretty much at the lowest, at number 6. Anyway, let's move on to the next number, that being number 5, and my favourite final boss, the Moon Presence. Yes, Bloodborne isn't as strong as people think. Now, this boss is one of the most powerful great ones in the lore. He is basically the short form version of Formless Odin. Basically, if he were to reach Formless Odin's strength, then he'd probably be number 1 because of the amount of decent strength he has and the hacks. However, he caps around about at like top 2 reasonably in the verse. Now, in terms of strength, he is an absolute monster. He's probably more strong than actually Isshin Ashina in terms of strength. Basically, in terms of his strength in general, he would range into probably planetary or moon level, since he moved the moon himself, and he even created the Hunter's Dream, which is already insane in terms of feats, way more than what actually Isshin Ashina did. Now, this should of course be more large planetary via this yield, and it shows how underrated Bloodborne is in terms of scaling, and how overglazed it is sometimes, because it is not outer. For the love of Christ, it is not outer. Let me just make that clear. Now, for speed, he gets even more insane, getting into the near enough the range of Isshin Ashina, like hypersonic to hypersonic plus. or massively hypersonic plus, sorry, via being able to travel from the moon to the hunter in a short amount of time. Maybe maybe we'll get another Bloodborne or a Bloodborne remaster in the future, and we'll get a return to this guy, and he might range into stronger tiers. But right now he caps at basically number 5. But anyway, this is where the Moon Presence would rank in terms of strength and speed. Anyways, let's move on to number 4, Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. Now you're probably wondering, why the fuck is he at number 4? Well, I'll get into it in a minute. Now, the next one after Gwyn is kind of interchangeable. You can debate which one's stronger, but I do believe Gwyn will be like number 4-ish. But you can argue the next person who's after him can be weaker than him. But anyway, Gwyn himself is insanely strong, being a Lord of Cinder capable of linking the first flame, which would the technical difficulties, but anyway, where was I? So he is pretty strong since he was able to link the first flame, which would immediately put him at star to low multi to even outer. Now, if you don't believe he's outer for some reason, he should immediately still range into star level via being able to, via the first flame, link it, basically hold everything in the universe together, that being the sun and multiple alternate worlds. Not only this, but Gwyn even managed to defeat the everlasting dragons who existed before the concepts of time and space even existed. So you could easily get him to outer, but if you don't believe he is outer, low multi is fine, and star level is fine, but it still puts him up insanely strong, above Moon Presence, above Isshin Ashina. Anyway, and even then, we fight a much weaker version in the games, which is like a shadow of his prime. So in his prime, he could be even stronger. However, we just don't have that much evidence to put him higher. But that's where you could reasonably range him into. However, for speed, he should range to FTL or even irrelevant, being comparable to the Chosen Undead. And remember, like I mentioned, we fight a much weaker Gwyn in the first Dark Souls. I mean, you can tell that bro literally looks like a corpse. Anyway, next we move on to number 3. Now, like I mentioned before, you can kind of interchange these two because I do have like a reasonable take to why Nashandra is kind of stronger. Now, you're probably wondering, who the fuck is Nashandra? Now, she is from Dark Souls 2, which is probably the most hated Souls game. It should be Demon's Souls, because Demon's Souls actually sucks ass. But we're moving on. Nashandra basically is the final boss of Dark Souls 2, like you probably would have guessed. Now, I believe she's a lot stronger than Gwyn due to the fact of her being a fragment of Manus, who even Gwyn was fearful of. Pretty much everyone is fearful of the Abyss, but Gwyn was the most fearful of it. And basically, Manus is the embodiment of the Abyss, so he is already insanely strong in verse. And Nashandra being basically a minor fragment of him, should have at least put her high, but not that comparable. It's like mid-tier comparable to Manus. Now, the Abyss basically reaches beyond, is beyond the reaches of the first flame.
Burrow deep within me, retreating to a darkness beyond the reach of flame.
To begin with, which would already mean it's beyond the concepts of time and space, which would inherently be outer, but if you don't believe that, you could say she's low multi, or, yet again, start level. Now, I've covered who Manus is before. I won't go into depth about his lore and all that shit, so you can check this video out to explain Manus and where you could put Nashandra. So just watch that video. I'll link it in the I'll link it in the description or the comment section, so you can go check that one out. Anyways, moving on, we have number 2, the Soul of Cinder. Now, he is basically an amalgamation of all the past Lords of Cinder, although we should know this by now, but if you don't, he's basically an amalgamation of every single one of them, that being the Chosen Undead, the Bearer of the Curse, the Devourer of Gods, Yhorm, all of them basically. Meaning he'd basically be stacked in terms of hacks, and technically you could say he is the embodiment of the first flame itself, since he does represent every single Lord of Cinder before him. So it should really put him quite high. I mean, you can already see it in his boss fight. He's already insanely strong, so it would be a reasonable area to put him at. Now, since he is basically every Lord of Cinder, that includes Chosen Undead. You could already put him at Outer, like I mentioned, or even Star Level, as I mentioned before. Anyway, main reason here, like I said, his hacks are long because of the fact he is basically every single Lord of Cinder, meaning he would have all the hacks, which would mean he would have a stack of hacks. That's why I do believe he's stronger than Nashandra and Gwyn. Gwyn for the obvious reason that he is Gwyn, so he just has all his moves. And for speed, you should range to FTL or Elden, if you don't believe he's Outer, of course, and that's where his placement would be with ease. But who is number one, you ask? Well, you should have seen this coming. It's Elden Beast. Now, I don't think I made it clear, but yeah, I also include Elden Ring in this list, since that is a Souls game. You should have seen it in the thumbnail. But if I didn't mention it, then yeah, Elden Ring is also in this list. You should have guessed at this point that this guy would be at number one. The main reason is because this guy is the concept of the Golden Order, meaning he's the concept of casualty and regression itself. I think I said that right. Do correct me if I said it wrong though. Now, the Elden Beast is basically the Elden Ring itself, the embodiment of it. Meaning, like I said before, he is a concept of causality, meaning he would have causality manipulation on a conceptual level, meaning any force acted upon him is reversed. So every single character before him, anything they do will just not happen because he'll either reverse it or just reflect it back at the person, which would just make him easily win because they won't do it, but they won't be able to do anything to him. Soul of Cinder will probably be the only one even kind of comparable to the Elden Beast, but even then he'd probably eventually lose. Now, for his speed, it doesn't really change. It's just going to be irrelevant because he's Outer, viewing the concept of the Order, so there's not really much change in his speed. And then, yeah, it doesn't really change anything. So yeah, I do think Elden Beast would be the strongest, and then of course Isshin Ashina would be the weakest. Like I mentioned before though, that does not mean Isshin Ashina ain't a cool boss. But anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please, as always, subscribe, like, and please get me to 500. We are very, very close. And I know this video was meant to be out for a long time, but like I mentioned, I got sick, so I kind of had to push it backwards. And yeah, we will see you next one. Bye bye.